Hey there, and welcome to our story. Today we're stepping into a world that, at first glance, seems perfectly ordinary. But as you'll soon discover, darkness can hide in the most unexpected places. Imagine a quiet street, lined with familiar houses, birds chirping in the morning, neighbors exchanging friendly smiles. Everything appears calm, almost comforting. But sometimes, the calm is only a mask. In the heart of this seemingly peaceful town lived Mariora Shend. On paper, she was just another resident, polite, unassuming, blending effortlessly into daily life. People hardly gave her a second thought. Little did anyone know, beneath that composed exterior, something far more sinister was lurking. Mariora's early years were uneventful, or at least that's what the records and neighbors say. School photos, family gatherings, routine holidays, it all seemed normal. But subtle hints of strangeness were always there, though easy to overlook. A fleeting shadow and a smile, an offhand comment no one remembered. Moments that would, in hindsight, send shivers down the spine. Neighbors later described her as mysterious, a word often used when someone is hard to read, someone whose true self remains hidden. She had routines, yes, but sometimes she would disappear for hours, returning with a look in her eyes that people couldn't quite place. It was almost as if she were carrying secrets too heavy to share. At the local shops, she was polite, sometimes chatty, but never revealing too much. Small-town life thrives on familiarity. And yet, Mariora maintained an enigmatic presence. There was always a sense of distance, like watching a play, where the final act is unknown. And in family stories, scarce as they were, hinted at her sharp intelligence and peculiar habits. She loved puzzles, obscure books, and long walks at night. The things she collected, the way she arranged her belongings, all seemed harmless, until you started noticing patterns that, on their own, didn't mean much, but together they painted a picture that nobody wanted to see. And that's the terrifying thing. Darkness doesn't always announce itself with a scream or a warning. Sometimes it sits quietly, folding itself into daily life, blending with ordinary smiles, ordinary greetings, until one day it's impossible to ignore. So as we begin this journey into Mariora Shen's world, keep in mind, the past often hides the most chilling secrets. What seems normal, what seems safe, can sometimes be the very doorway to horror. In the next part of our story, we'll start seeing the first signs that something wasn't right, the tiny cracks in her seemingly perfect facade. Cracks that, if noticed earlier, might have changed everything. And stay with me. Let's uncover the beginnings of a story that will haunt this town for years to come. Alright, Arayao. And now things start to shift. The town that once seemed calm begins to notice little disturbances, small, almost insignificant, but enough to raise eyebrows. Rumors start to whisper through the streets like a chilly wind. It began subtly. A neighbor, noticing Mariora wandering late at night, carrying bags that seemed heavier than they should be. Another witness recalling strange sounds coming from her house, doors opening and closing when no one was supposed to be there. At first, people shrugged it off. Everyone has quirks, right? But the unease kept growing. Then came the missing pets. Cats, dogs, neighbors' animals, disappearing without a trace. Coincidence? Perhaps. But with Mariora, patterns emerged that no one could ignore. People started to talk. Stories circulated. A shadow glimpsed in a window, footsteps echoing in empty corridors, odd deliveries at odd hours. And in friends and acquaintances described her as polite, even charming. Yet there was always something that didn't quite add up. A look in her eyes that seemed to hide more than it revealed. A smile that didn't reach her gaze. These small observations, pieces of a puzzle, were warning signs that something far darker was brewing. At the local market, whispers would start with, "Did you hear about?" And suddenly, ordinary conversations carried a weight of suspicion. People felt the air change when she walked by, as though an invisible tension followed her everywhere. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but it was there, creeping in like a shadow at dusk. And then even those closest to Mariora noticed little oddities, missed appointments, unexplained absences, belongings rearranged in strange ways. Each event on its own seemed minor, but taken together they painted a picture that was hard to ignore. There was a method in her behavior, a hidden order to the chaos that frightened those who tried to understand it. And so the town was caught in a slow realization. What once seemed like an ordinary life was masking something far more sinister. People began to feel it, an unspoken unease, a shiver running down the spine whenever Mariora's name was mentioned. These early warning signs, small and easily dismissed, were the first tremors of a story that would shake the entire community. By paying attention to them, or failing to, they set the stage for the horrors that were yet to come. Stay close, because in the next part, the truth begins to emerge. The dark events that nobody wanted to see start to take shape, and the town is forced to confront the unimaginable. Now, things take a darker turn. The unsettling whispers and uneasy glances weren't just rumors, they were a prelude to the horrifying truth. What had been hidden in the shadows of Mariora Shen's life was about to come to light. It started with a discovery that shocked the entire community. Investigators stumbled upon evidence that no one could have imagined. Objects carefully concealed, signs of manipulation, and traces of events that painted a grim picture. And the reality was undeniable. Mariora had committed a crime so disturbing it would haunt the town for years. Victims whose lives had seemed ordinary and full of promise were found to have been drawn into a web of deception. Their absence, previously dismissed as coincidence, now had a terrifying explanation. Police reports detailed the meticulous planning, the chilling precision, and the cold detachment with which Mariora carried out her actions. Neighbors described the shock that rippled through the streets. People who had once waved hello, shared a smile, or borrowed sugar from her kitchen now felt a visceral sense of betrayal. And how could someone so normal, so ordinary, do something like this? They asked themselves, struggling to reconcile the friendly neighbor they knew with the monster uncovered. Evidence included items hidden in plain sight, journals with cryptic entries, and messages that hinted at a mind preoccupied with dark thoughts. Detectives pieced together the timeline, reconstructing the events that led to the tragedy. Every detail revealed a level of calculation that was terrifying in its clarity. It wasn't a crime of impulse, it was a crime of intention. Even the most skeptical community members couldn't deny what they were seeing. The photographs, the witness testimonies, the patterns, all pointed to the same chilling conclusion. Mariora Shen wasn't just a neighbor or a familiar face. She was the orchestrator of horror that left everyone questioning their sense of safety. And yet, amid the shock and disbelief, there was a morbid fascination. People couldn't look away. News outlets covered every new detail. Interviews with friends and family painted a fuller picture, and social media buzzed with speculation. And in every revelation deepened the horror. But it also made the community realize one terrifying fact. The world can be stranger and darker than anyone ever imagines. As we move forward, we'll see how the town reacts, how society grapples with the news, and how the pressure for justice begins to mount, because once the truth is out, there's no turning back. With the truth out in the open, and the town could no longer ignore what had happened, news of Mariora Shen's crime spread like wildfire, igniting fear, anger, and a demand for answers. Everyone had an opinion, and every conversation seemed charged with tension. Local newspapers and social media erupted. Headlines screamed the horrifying details, interviews with witnesses added layers of disbelief, and hashtags trended, calling for justice. And then ordinary people became amateur detectives, dissecting every fact, every rumor, trying to make sense of what had happened. Neighbors, once quiet and polite, now gathered in small groups, sharing their shock and frustration. How did we miss this? They asked, voices trembling. She seemed so normal, so harmless. The dissonance between Mariora's outward appearance and her actions left the community grappling with confusion and fear. Activists and advocacy groups jumped into the fray, demanding accountability. Demonstrations were held, petitions circulated, and the story became a national conversation. People debated morality, safety, and the responsibility of those around her. The emotional intensity was palpable, as if the town itself were holding its breath, waiting for justice to be served. Even casual acquaintances felt the ripple effect. Those who had once nodded politely in passing now looked over their shoulders, questioning the ordinary world they had taken for granted. Trust had been shaken, and a quiet paranoia settled over the streets. Amid the outrage, some voices urged caution. "Let the law handle this," they said. But passion often drowned reason, and the collective anger of a shocked community was impossible to ignore. Every news segment, every post online reinforced the weight of the crime and the urgency for action. And this social pressure didn't just affect Mariora, it affected everyone around her. Families of victims demanded answers. Friends struggled with disbelief. And the town, once peaceful, was now a place where fear and suspicion lingered in the air like a heavy fog. As the investigation deepened, the public's eye never wavered, and this relentless scrutiny would soon collide with the legal system, bringing the story to a dramatic and highly charged courtroom stage. In the next part, we'll dive into the police investigation, uncovering the steps taken to connect the dots and reveal the full extent of Mariora Shen's action. Now, let's step behind the scenes and into the investigation that brought Mariora Shen's dark actions into the light. What started as whispers and suspicions soon transformed into a meticulous police operation, where every detail mattered and no stone was left unturned. Detectives worked tirelessly, reviewing witness statements, examining physical evidence, and retracing Mariora's steps. At first, the puzzle seemed impossible. Clues were scattered, subtle, and often contradictory. But slowly, a pattern began to emerge, a chilling roadmap of her actions. They discovered hidden compartments in her home, objects carefully concealed, and documents that hinted at her intentions. Every item told a story, each small detail adding depth to the growing picture of horror. Surveillance footage, phone records, and neighborhood accounts came together, revealing moments previously unnoticed, moments that would prove crucial in piecing together the timeline of her crimes. Interviews with friends and acquaintances revealed a complex personality. Some were shocked, some confused, and others hesitant to speak, afraid of the truth. And in each conversation, though painstaking, brought investigators closer to understanding the method behind the madness. Patterns of behavior emerged, calculated routines, deliberate absences, and interactions that masked her true intentions. At times, the investigation faced setbacks, misdirections, incomplete records, and conflicting testimonies created obstacles. But the team's persistence never wavered. Every late night in the office, every carefully analyzed clue, every painstaking cross-check of evidence was a step toward justice. And then came the breakthroughs. Small pieces of evidence, previously overlooked, suddenly aligned, like puzzle pieces, clicking into place. They uncovered hidden communications, financial transactions, and objects linking Mariora directly to her crimes. And Anne. The evidence painted a clear picture. Nothing was accidental. Everything was orchestrated. The investigation didn't just reveal the crime itself. It uncovered the depth of planning, the careful manipulation, and the cold precision of Mariora's actions. The detectives' work turned suspicion into certainty and speculation into facts that could hold up in court. As the case moved forward, the police efforts became the foundation for the legal battle to come. Every piece of evidence, every testimony would soon be tested under the intense scrutiny of the courtroom. In the next segment, we'll follow Mariora Shend into the courtroom, exploring the tension, the arguments, and the drama of the trial itself, where the full story would finally confront the law. And now on the stage is set for the courtroom drama that would grip the town and capture the nation's attention. The trial of Mariora Shend was not just a legal proceeding. It was an emotional storm, where every word, every gesture, and every revelation had the power to shock, provoke, and unsettle. The courtroom itself was tense. Families of victims, journalists, and curious onlookers filled every seat, their whispers echoing off the walls. Every eye followed Mariora as she entered, calm and composed, yet the air seemed thick with anticipation, and the contrast between her poise and the gravity of her crimes only intensified the unease. The prosecution laid out their case with painstaking detail. Witnesses recounted events, evidence was presented, and the chilling narrative of Mariora's actions unfolded piece by piece. Every photograph, every document, every testimony carried weight. And the jury listened intently, the audience holding their breath, as the magnitude of the crime became undeniable. The defense, of course, countered with strategy and nuance. They questioned witnesses, challenged evidence, and painted a picture that sought to mitigate Mariora's responsibility. The tension between the opposing sides created a palpable energy in the room, one that made every observer acutely aware of the stakes. Emotion ran high. Tears were shed, voices trembled, and moments of silence punctuated the heated arguments. For the families of the victims, the courtroom was both a place of anguish and a search for justice. For the public, it was a window into the complexity of human behavior, morality, and the law itself. Media coverage amplified every dramatic moment. Live reports, headlines, and social media commentary turned the trial into a national event. People debated, speculated, and struggled to reconcile the ordinary woman they thought they knew with the orchestrator of such horrifying acts. And yet, amid the intensity and emotion, the legal process persisted. Evidence was scrutinized, timelines reconstructed, and the jury was guided carefully through the layers of fact and testimony. Every detail mattered, and the weight of responsibility rested heavily on those tasked with determining Mariora's fate. As the trial progressed, it became clear. This was more than a story of crime. It was a story of justice, morality, and the human capacity for both deception and courage. The courtroom had become a stage where society confronted the very limits of understanding and empathy. In the next segment, we'll explore the aftermath of the trial, the consequences for Mariora, her victims, and the community as a whole, and how a town begins to heal, or struggles to do so. After the trial, and the town was left to grapple with the aftermath. Mariora Shen's actions had shaken the community to its core, leaving scars that would take years to heal. Families mourned, neighbors reflected, and a collective sense of vulnerability settled over the streets once filled with routine calm. People spoke of trust lost. The friendly faces they had waved to each morning now carried a shadow of doubt. Parents worried more. Neighbors eyed each other cautiously. And the small routines of life were tinged with unease. And even those far removed from the tragedy felt a lingering fear, a reminder that darkness can exist anywhere, even in seemingly ordinary lives. The families of victims faced a complex mix of grief, anger, and the need for closure. They sought to understand how someone they never truly knew could commit such heinous acts. Therapy sessions, community support groups, and long conversations became a lifeline for those struggling to process the horror. And meanwhile, public discussion evolved. Society questioned how such crimes could occur unnoticed, debating safety, morality, and the responsibilities of those around Mariora. Activists and journalists pushed for reforms, community programs, and awareness initiatives to prevent similar tragedies in the future. Schools and local organizations began education campaigns about awareness, intuition, and speaking up about odd behavior, small steps toward reclaiming a sense of security. The town had learned that ignoring the subtle signs, however minor they seemed, could allow danger to grow unchecked. Yet even amid sadness and reflection, there was resilience. People came together to support each other, neighbors forged stronger bonds, and the community began to rebuild. And in hope, while fragile, started to grow in the spaces left by fear. As the story closes, we are left with the question, how does a society balance vigilance with trust? How do we process the darkness that can hide behind ordinary lives? These are the lessons that linger long after the headlines fade. In the final segment, we'll reflect on the full story, exploring the lasting impact, the lessons learned, and the chilling reminder that the ordinary can sometimes conceal the unimaginable. And now, as we reach the final chapter of Mariora Shen's story, it's time to pause and reflect. What started as an ordinary life, unnoticed in a quiet town, unfolded into a tale of deception, fear, and tragedy. The events we've explored leave us with more questions than answers, questions about human nature, morality, and the hidden darkness that can exist in everyday lives. We've seen how small, almost invisible signs can point to something far greater. The neighbors' observations, the odd routines, the unexplained absences, they remind us that vigilance matters. And yet, at the same time, we're faced with the challenge of balance. How to live without paranoia, how to trust yet remain aware. The story of Mariora Shen also forces us to confront society's role. How do communities respond to horror when it emerges from within? How do we support victims, hold perpetrators accountable, and rebuild trust in the aftermath? These are questions that linger long after the trial and headlines fade. And there's a chilling truth. The ordinary can sometimes conceal the unimaginable. People we think we know, those who smile, who wave, who seem familiar, can have hidden depths we cannot foresee. It's a reminder to pay attention, to listen, and to trust our instincts when something feels off. And yet, amid the darkness, there is also hope. Communities can learn, heal, and grow stronger. Awareness, education, and empathy can prevent future tragedies and help society remain resilient. And the story is grim, yes, but it is also a call to consciousness, a nudge to remain attentive without succumbing to fear. As we close this chapter, take a moment to reflect on the lessons of Mariora Shen's case. Remember the importance of vigilance, the weight of responsibility, and the enduring strength of communities that face the unimaginable together. Thank you for staying with me through this journey. And remember, the ordinary may hide secrets, but our attention, awareness, and care can illuminate the shadows. Thank you so much, Anne, for watching today's video. I hope you found this story as fascinating and chilling as I did. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit that like button, and it really helps support the channel. And make sure to subscribe for more stories like this, so you never miss a new video. I'd also love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below, and did anything in Mariora Shen's story surprise you the most? Or maybe you have your own theories about the case. I'll be reading them all. Thanks again for being here, and remember, stay curious, stay aware, and I'll see you in the next story. And a smiley face and a smiley face.